I call this meeting to order. This is October 11th, 2023, regular meeting of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. It is 6:15 p.m. I apologize for the meeting starting late. Some of us just were off in another world somewhere. All right, so item number one was a call to order. Seat alternates. I don't even remember who the alternates are anymore. Danielle's one, okay, and Patrick's the other one, okay. And then I think we're still, we expect one more commissioner to join us while we're going on here. Item number three, hearing of residents. Any emails or texts? No. All right, item number four is the consent agenda. One item, the minutes from the September 27, 2023 regular meeting. There's no discussion on the consent agenda. Do we need to pull this item for discussion, anyone? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, that was Commissioner McMaster and Commissioner Cabron, correct? No discussion, I'll call for the vote. Please record your votes. I'm sorry, I was having trouble making this thing work. Okay. I have 5 votes. Would you publish that, please? All right, we have 5 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. Item number 5 is a public hearing. Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing related to zone change requests and replats within this agenda. The public hearing will be open to receive a report from staff, the applicant, the adjoining property owners affected by the applicant's request, and any other interested persons. Upon completion, the public hearing will be closed. The commission will discuss and consider the application and may request additional information from staff or the applicant if required. After deliberation, the commission is asked to consider and act upon the following requests and make a recommendation to City Council if necessary. Item 5A, PLUDC 2023-0228, hold a public hearing, workshop and discussion and possible action to make a recommendation on amendments to Part 3 of the Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, UDC, to Article 3, boards, commissions, and committees, and Article 12, subdivisions. Sam?
Evening, Commissioners. PLUDC 2023-0228, UDC amendments to Article 3 and Article 12, Samuel Haas, Senior Planner. So, the background of these proposals comes from Texas House Bill HB 3699, which went into effect September 1st, 2023. In Section 6 of this bill, they are proposing to amend the local government code, which is Texas state law, as it relates to platting and who has the authority to approve. So this is an excerpt from the actual bill text. It says the governing body of a municipality or the municipal planning commission may delegate to one or more officers or employees of the municipality the ability to approve with conditions, or disapprove a plat. And the text in red is basically the old local government code law. They have struck that from the language, and they've just added what's in green there. So essentially what this is outlining here is administrative authority or staff authority to approve plats. So previously, the state law permitted that amending plats, minor plats, and certain replats could be approved by staff, while all other plats went to the Planning and Zoning Commission, or however the municipality or the municipal governing body of the municipality decided. So technically, we are not out of conformance. The Planning and Zoning Commission could still decide on plats if you so wish. But staff is proposing some amendments to sort of help the process along, and I'll explain as follows. So the platting process, just to kind of get a top-down, quick little synopsis of it here. We have a certification and then a formal process. The certification, the reason we do this is because state law dictates that once you submit a plat application, there is a 30-day shot clock to review and approve that plat. And a lot of times that is just not enough time to review and approve things. So how we have done it and how other municipalities have done it is they have implemented a certification process. So essentially, the first step in a plat process is the certification, and which is where staff, the development team, will do the bulk of our review. And once we've basically certified the plat, we will give them certification letters. And so as you can see here in this sort of like preliminary process, the preliminary plat certification comes in, we do a review, we give them the certification letters, then they come in for a formal preliminary plat application. And as part of the submittal requirements for that plat, you have to have these certification letters. So you can't submit for a formal plat until you've actually got certified. That's how our UDC currently reads. So this is the formal application is where the fee is assessed, the state mandated shot clock begins, and the review is really quick because it's largely just sort of procedural because we've already done all the review and the certification. So we select a P&Z date for this plat to be heard, and since P&Z meets on the second and fourth Wednesdays, we have to be selective in how that shot clock, the 30 days, is kind of done. Staff prepares an agenda, they prepare a staff report, and they also prepare a presentation for this plat to present to y'all. So the planning and zoning agenda, it'll be that preliminary plat will go as an individual discussion item. And this is where typically we have some back and forth and you talk about it. And then once you guys approve the preliminary plat, we then go to the final plat, which is the exact same process. Certification and then formal. Certification is where the staff does the bulk of their review. We issue certification letters, then you can do the formal final plat application, where the certification letters are required as a submittal item, the fee is assessed, the state mandated shot clock kicks in again, a P&Z date is selected, staff prepares an agenda, a staff report, and a presentation for this final plat as well. This final plat will go on to the consent, so there's no discussion to be heard, but staff still does the agenda, does the staff report, does the presentation. So once the final plat's been approved, it's then eligible for the recordation process, which means that the applicant will they will acquire tax certificates, they will prepare payment for the county, they'll get necessary signatures on the plat, and they will turn it to the city for staff to record at the county. And if there's any public improvements that are tied to the plat, those have to be completed before the recordation can happen. So it's a bit of a process. So this process is the same for replats and vacating plats currently in our UDC. It goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission. So for minor plats and for amending plats, staff has the authority to approve that according to our UDC. The UDC allows administrative authority. And this is also what the previous state law had permitted for us to do, as we saw earlier in that slide. So in practice, the Texas Local Government Code section 212.005A states the following. The municipal authority responsible for approving plats must approve a plat or a replat that is required to be prepared under this subchapter and that satisfies the requirements of this subchapter. So what this effectively means is that neither staff nor the Planning and Zoning Commission can deny a plat if it meets all the requirements. So bringing a plat before the Planning and Zoning Commission is largely procedural. It's ceremonial, essentially. And, part of our review process is to ensure that all those requirements are met prior to presenting. So this adds some time and effort to the development process because we do have to bring it before the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval. We have those strict submittal calendars due to that 30-day shot clock. And this is just a little clip of our submittal calendar. This is for the remainder of the year. So if you have a plat that's ready to be heard, so you can submit it on October 31st, you can submit it on November 28th, or Tuesday, December 5th. Those are the last 3 dates that we can do it. If you have any issues with the plat, there's a resubmittal calendar as well that's on the right side. So this is required for both preliminary and for final. Staff organizes the agendas, compiles a staff report, prepares a presentation for P&Z. And this is for all plats. So what staff is proposing to do is to amend the Unified Development Code to give administrative approval authority for all subdivision plats with amendments to the following sections: amendments to Article 3 and amendments to Article 12, and I'll go through those here in a second. So in Article 3, and these are in your handouts that are in front of you as well. So essentially we're proposing to include this language: the Planning and Zoning Commission shall have final approval authority on the following applications. Essentially everything here: subdivision master plan, site plan, preliminary plat, final plat, etc., if forwarded by the city manager or his or her designee, which is essentially how the UDC defines staff. In administrative authority, staff's approval, we are including preliminary plat, final plat, and replat in accordance with LGC, Local Government Code, Section 212.0065. And we also include language that the city manager or his or her designee may forward any of these plats to the Planning and Zoning Commission if they choose to. So in Article 12, there's a few sections we have to sort of detail. The first one here is in general provisions. There's a little section, subsection I, that we have to add the city manager or his or her designee when explaining what the disapproval of a plat means. For the preliminary plat process, this is what it kind of is going to look like. And this is going to look the same for finals, for replat, and for vacating. It's essentially the same exact language. But it outlines and details basically the approval process in accordance with LGC Section 212.005, what happens if it's denied or approved, appeals, if an applicant decides that staff has made a wrong decision about a plat, if we deny it for some reason, which according to local government code would be very difficult, but if for some reason it happens and they decide to appeal, the appeal goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then there's just some more language about the city manager, his or her designee, about expirations and extensions, et cetera, how we will be granting that. So staff will leave final authority for waivers to the platting requirements in the UDC to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The commission here is waiver requests for sewer, often things along that nature. Also, any appeals, as I mentioned, will go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and staff believes that these discretionary items, the discretionary nature of these items would be more appropriate before an appointed body such as the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's why we're leaving those in there. And then we're also leaving the option to forward any plat to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well, if we so choose. Staff feels that these amendments would help eliminate the procedural requirement of bringing plats to the commission for what is effectively an automatic approval. It would make our development process more streamlined, more efficient, and more cost-effective for both property owners, applicants, and for the city. Staff is recommending approval of the amendments to the Unified Development Code as proposed and discussed.
All right, thank you, Sam. This is a public hearing. It is 6:29 p.m. And at this time, we'll open the hearing for the public. Anyone? No one? Guess not. Okay, hang on. The clock's going to tick over here. There you go. 6:30 p.m. and the public input session is closed. All right, commissioners. Comments, questions? Let me ask a couple. Sam?
I got one, Mr. Outlaw.
All right, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So what I heard is that certain procedures that we do now are ceremonial past this point. And so you're trying to streamline some of the processes to make things move faster because that 30-day clock pushes you up against a lot of things.
Yeah, and it pushes us against a lot of things, and it pushes applicants up against a lot of things too. So there's windows for them. They have their motivations. We all know that, right? And and so it's going to help us. We think it's going to be universally help both staff and applicants help with this process, make it a little quicker, if you will. Because according to the local government code, you have to approve this anyway. So, getting all this together and bringing it before y'all to decide, and all these staff reports and picking these certain submittal calendars and stuff, all that could be essentially eliminated.
Yes, I'm kind of torn about this one because it's one of the few things left that we do. But staff is absolutely correct. Given the way the law is structured, it's pretty much a rubber stamp operation, and it begs the question that if all we're going to do is approve it, why are they spending all the time and effort to bring it to us? Master plans, really? That one bugs me a little bit, because now I'm sitting here theorizing or thinking that if somebody comes in and wants to do a 400 home subdivision, if they don't need to rezone the property, planning and zoning and the city council will never see that issue. Is that right? Is that the way you want to do it?
That's the way we are proposing, yes.
Okay, given all the recent discussion about PDDs and lot sizes and that kind of stuff, I'm not sure I want to let go of master plans.
Okay.
Where'd I see that, Sam? It was in your presentation.
Yeah, it's going to be the very first page on this handout. It's basically item 2A, B2A.
And I really don't mean any offense, but, I'm not sure I like the idea of turning the entire subdivision development process without any, not necessarily even just planning and zoning, but city council never getting to see. It just happens. And the other question I want to ask you is, if we don't approve them anymore, who's going to sign the plat before it goes to the county?
That would be most likely either the director of planning and community development, Lisa Wood, or I think that would be, in her absence, Brian James, Emily Delgado.
So no more legacy signatures out there where I can look back in 20 years and say, see, I signed that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else has some thoughts? Anybody?
I have to agree with you. This gives no public hearing to a development.
Well, let me, I don't mean to cut you off, Patrick, but let me ask, right now, if a developer is going to do a subdivision without zoning, well, of course, he's got to plat it. That plat right now would come to us, okay? The plat and the master plan, those aren't the same things, right?
They are not the same thing, but what a subdivision master plan is essentially, it shows a phased development within the platting, right? And so if there is straight zoning, in R1 and R2, something along those lines, all those lots have to meet the UDC requirements. All the park requirements have to be met, all the landscaping, even though that's not even mentioned in the platting process, but the lot width, the depth, the setbacks, those are all still met within straight zoning. So if they did come in for a PDD, I know there's a lot of debate right now, but that is a rezone. You will still see the master plan, and if they're trying to finagle their way around the UDC like developers like to do, then you still get to see that, you still get to consider that, because as a part of the PDD requirement, a master plan is associated with that. But if it's a straight zoning, I know that we're saying that it'll be administratively approved, but they still have to meet all the UDC requirements, all the dimensional and design standards, if you will.
All right, I'm sorry, Patrick, I cut you off. Did you?
No, he just explained it.
I'm kind of stuck on this one too, because we don't always find issues with plats or master plans, but occasionally we do. And it's that occasional kind of thing that I'm concerned about, because it's another set of eyes looking at a plan. And I look around the room and, I see 1, 2, 3 people who haven't been living here very long, and they don't know the history of what Schertz prefers to have and what they don't prefer to have. And, Emily's the only one in the process that's been here for any length of time. So we have a different perspective and a different view of things. The city manager's brand new. He's never been here before. Other people in the process are in the same way. So I'm going to miss having that set of eyes on this thing that, that other folks don't have. And like I said, we've caught things in the past, not very often, but we have caught things in the past. And I knew this was going to happen. I don't know if you were at the APA, but when they came up with this 30-day shot clock thing, I knew this was going to happen. It's just a stair-stepping of developers getting to the legislature and taking authority away from the city. I mean, look what they did with ETJs and annexing property and all that kind of stuff. They're taking away our authority that we used to have. And who's doing it? The developers are doing it. So, I don't know, I'm kind of stuck on this. And I agree, I'd like to see a master plan. The other ones are, we're stuck. We have to approve it. I can come up with a laundry list of things that I disagree with on a plat, but if it meets the law, it has to be approved. So,
Well,
I don't know, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's another question that occurred to me is, I have to agree that plats are 99.9% automatic approval, so why bother? Is a master plan considered automatic approval?
So,
Well, maybe I'm thinking
the way the law reads, no, it's not.
But maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing here, Sam. When you do the plat, you're already doing street layout. So then to bring that master plan, does that come before or after the plat?
So it depends on, the master plan it will come before the plat. Because if there's some certain requirements to what a master plan has to do. If they have a large, parcel and they're not platting it all at the same time, then they have to show the phasing of that plat, which is where the plan will come in. And so it does, if their preliminary plat and their final plat don't match what's on their master plan, then we have a problem, and so we'll make one or the other be revised. But so to answer your question simply, it comes before the platting.
Expand on what Sam is saying. So we don't get a subdivision master plan for every subdivision, for every plat that P&Z sees. Theoretically, they could have a larger tract property, and as long as they incorporate it all into a preliminary plat, even if they final plat separate units, final plat unit 1, and then a year later come in and do unit 2, as long as it's all on that preliminary plat, they're not required to do a subdivision master plan. So that's just one piece of it. It's, we do a lot more plats in the various phases of plats than we ever do subdivision master plans.
All right. Another question. because, and we get typically what happens, and not so much, well, yeah, even that. Where I'm going is we'll get a request to rezone a piece of property. And right behind that is typically a plat. Am I remembering that right?
That's typically how the process goes.
And what causes issues for me as the chairman and the commission in general, as well as city council, is when we're looking at a zoning request, the question before the board is that zoning appropriate? And that's always muddied up because right there sitting alongside with everybody else, and even during the zoning change, the developer will get up and say, here's what we want to do with the property. Does doing this, are we going to stop seeing that? Will we only see the zone request? We won't, therefore, because there's no reason then, if there's a follow-on plat to that. Help me out here. I know it was just a while ago, but the request to rezone GB to GB2 up here. We saw there was a zoning request, and then what was the item right after that? Was it a plat?
A specific use permit.
Specific use permit. Okay. But you understand where I'm coming from. A lot of times we have trouble focusing on the zoning issue because everybody in the room wants to talk about, well, we don't want Dollar General, or we don't want apartments, or, well,
Right.
That's a bad one because the zoning would be a giveaway on that one. But you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and correct me if I misspeak here, but the applicant isn't required to provide any sort of site plan or anything like that when
Right.
it comes to it. They typically do that in order to build their case, to sort of, help you guys make a decision, if you will, in city council. But once they get the zone change, they could come in with a totally different use if they so wished. But that's typically, so I guess, where I understand your concern is, you see these plans, but those plans technically aren't even required as part of the
Well, no, that's
zone
my
change.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to see those.
Which
Okay.
we can share with the developers, with their representatives, that when a zone change comes forward, you don't want to see the conceptual plan, or you don't want to see the pretty picture renderings, right? I mean, I think their goal is they make that as part of their presentation to be open and transparent about this is what the plan is if the zoning gets approved. But I agree, it sometimes does make it muddy of maybe we're okay with the zoning district, but we're not okay with, whatever business it might be, right? The
Well, and-
preconceived notions or whatever.
Or in the latest case, we were okay with the use, we just weren't, well, I say we,
Yeah.
me, okay? I was not comfortable with the zoning. I was okay with what they wanted to do with the property.
Yeah.
And yes, Sam, I understand they're not required to bring that stuff as part of the zoning, but they always do.
Right.
And I was just wondering if we divorce these things, and now it's not that I don't want to see it, but now we really don't need to see it. So, and if whether or not, from what you're saying, they're probably still going to do it anyway.
I don't feel like this change will stop that.
Okay.
I think they're still going to want to be transparent about what their end goal is.
Okay. Anybody else?
On section 2135, administrative authority, subdivision master plan is still in there. Is that supposed to be in there, or you missed it?
Yeah, so that'll be administrative authority. That's what we're proposing to.
But it says the city manager shall have the authority. That means he does have the authority
Right.
to review and make a recommendation to the
Does.
appropriate body, so that if the subdivision master plan is there, but you're proposing to take it out of 2133, so it wouldn't be in there.
Right, and I think some of these proposed amendments also do some UDC cleanup to help it make a little more sense. So prior to this, the UDC read that staff already had administrative approval authority, as well as planning and zoning. So that's a little confusing as well. But this proposed amendment sort of clears that up, and we are proposing to have staff have that authority.
I knew this was going to happen.
Well, I think if they can find a way, and I don't mean you are not they are other theys. We'd just as soon see this body go away because we get in the way. We're a stumbling block. And I have to agree with you, and this is just a non-relevant comment that I agree 100% with Commissioner Brode that the developers and builders in this state are running the state, not us's, okay? And it's really depressing and infuriating to watch our elected officials remove our authority for how we want, what we want to happen in our own city. We're not telling anybody else how to do anything, but this is how we want our city to be. And we've got a bunch of folks sitting up an hour up the highway telling us, no, you're not going to do that. We know better than you do, so we're going to tell you, okay? And this is just the latest, and I'm sure there's more to come. You know, I know finally several cities have sued the state over some of this stuff that came out of the last session, and I hope they stick with it. And somebody has the fortitude and to stand up to these folks. Anybody else? So I can get off my political soapbox. All right, this is a recommendation of City Council to either approve or deny BLUDC 2023-0228. Anybody want to make a motion?
Okay, hold on, I have a question. Can we deny it if it's state law? Like, how does...
So, yeah, just to clarify, so if you would like to keep the authority to approve and deny plats, you can make a motion to recommend denial or disapproval. So, you know, this is just staff is proposing this because we feel like it'll help the process, because, you know, it is a timely, you know, time-consuming process, so we feel like these proposed amendments would help with that. But if you would like to keep the authority, that is perfectly within your right to do so.
So ultimately, right, the short answer is state law was changed where now the authority can be granted to staff. It's not a requirement. The state doesn't say, well, you have to basically change your ordinances and staff can approve plats. The state has given the recommending body and city council the authority to grant staff the ability to approve plats. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Dumb question, but why would anyone vote to diminish their own authority?
Well, I've said it a couple times already. It's, yes, it's our authority to approve or deny plats, but 9,999 times out of 1,000, we approve them. Because we don't, and even though if you go back, I think last year or so, you will find isolated nay votes on plats. But typically those are, you know, just one or two, and the plat gets approved anyway, because I think staff's done a pretty good job. The law says, unless you can point to a reason, unless you can point to a requirement that the plat does not meet, you must approve it. And so, while I agree with you, John, that yeah, and I hate to see this because again, this is one of the few things we still get to do. But staff is right. They spend a lot of time and effort bringing this to us just so we can take out our rubber stamp and say approved. So, Does that make sense?
So we're obsolete.
Well, now, again, my little rant about the developers in Austin,
No, you have a valid point, sir.
well, yeah, but in this case, they're not forcing us to. It is our choice. Or, well, it's really city council's choice. You know, and this is another one of those, because it's a UDC amendment, it has to go to city council. It's not like a plat where the buck stops here, okay? But in this case, the state says you may delegate to staff. We don't have to.
Yeah, and I will mention that, you know, so zoning cases obviously will still come before the Planning and Zoning Commission. But when it comes to platting, when a applicant requests a waiver from the UDC requirements, such as not connecting to sewer, that will still come before the planning. You will still decide on that. Staff will not decide on that. Any appeals to any of our decisions, that will come before the Planning and Zoning Commission. You will decide on that as well. So there's still, yeah, I mean, and then, yeah, there's still SUPs, you know, there's still things that the Zoning Commission will hear. It's just platting, which is effectively procedural.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So besides streamlining the process, what are the major like pros and cons that you guys see, or the benefits that you guys see from us changing this process?
Yeah, I think the major pro is time for everybody. It's going to save us a lot of time and effort. It's going to save applicants a lot of time and effort. And that's really what it is, what it boils down to is, I think the city of Schertz has a reputation of being confusing and difficult when it comes to development, and we're trying to help with that. And we see this particular process as a good way to make it more streamlined, just because of how much effort and time goes into what essentially is an automatic thing.
I think it might be helpful to like show an example. So we're gonna go back to Sam's submittal calendar. So say I had a plat submitted, went through the certification process, and I got certification letters today. It's the 11th, so I have to sit and wait until October 31st to submit my formal application, to then wait another 2 weeks to be heard at the November Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for actual approval. So if you look at it that way, you know, you can submit a certification at any time, and the certification process can sometimes take several months, and we don't certify exhibits to line up with submittal dates. So there's a lot of times that developers or applicants, property owners are sitting, waiting until the submittal date so they can then sit and wait again for the P&Z date to get their approval. When if the change was made, we could certify today, they could submit their formal application tomorrow, and they could theoretically have approval next week.
You didn't address the cons. I will.
The cons would be diminishing the authority of...
From staff's point of
Yeah.
view, there are none, right?
Essentially, right.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to turn into a politician and start ducking questions.
You notice we both did it.
Just to answer that, you know, are we out of date, I guess, nowadays? You're going to see in a few months how busy we're going to be with UDC changes, comp plan changes, comprehensive land plan changes, what's the other I'm thinking of, the fees, the wastewater fees and water fees.
Yeah, there's still a lot of
What-
items that come before the planning and zoning to make recommendations to city.
Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff to do. It's just in the plat area, we're being diminished in the plat area.
Yeah.
Can we review the discussion about the master plan? Do we want to keep that, or do we want to let that go?
It's, I think I just, in my mind, just leave it the way it is, or the way they've proposed it. So, delegate the master plan approval authority to staff along with plats and all that. And then we'll see what city council has to say about it. Particularly, I think Emily's explanation was, and I know, Sam, you kind of talked, it was in there a couple times in your comments, is that the only time they're going to submit a master plan is when they're not going to plat the entire development at one time, correct? So, as she said, if they want to come in and they preliminary plat the entire subdivision, they're not going to do a master plan. We're not going to see it because they do plats. So it's not quite the process I thought it was. And I don't know that there would be any benefit to retaining that master plan approval authority on the commission. That's just my opinion. Push the button. Talk in the mic. Yes, whatever. If there's a motion, let's hear it.
I'd like to make a recommendation for approval to PLUDC 2023-0228.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of PLUDC 2023-0228 from Commissioner Carbone, and I assume that's as submitted by staff, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second from Commissioner McMaster. Any further discussion or questions? All right, please record your vote. All right, I see 6 votes recorded. Please publish that vote. And we have 6 ayes and none opposed. That motion passes.
With
Doesn't-
prejudice.
Doesn't mean we're happy. Okay.
I get it.
With prejudice, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
That too.
Okay, moving on to,
Did you have a question?
oh, it's,
Okay.
what?
Oh, 3699.
All right, moving right along. Item 6 is requests and announcements. Item A, request by commissioners to place items on a future P&Z agenda. Nothing?
The approval of plats.
The approval of plats. How about announcements by commissioners? Nobody did anything over the last 2 weeks, okay. And then finally, announcements by staff. Hang on, back up.
Many of you might remember Mr. Ken Greenwald provided service to this city for, 30, 35 years as a councilman, a P&Z commissioner, board member on various boards. The Schertz Local Government Corporation, the corporation that provides water for Schertz and Seguin, honored Mr. Greenwald yesterday by naming the pump station, the water treatment facility at the Gonzalez Field after Mr. Greenwald yesterday. So members of his family were there. We had a little plaque dedication and a proclamation and had a nice little lunch and get together with the family there yesterday, and it went very well. Also found out that I wasn't aware his wife passed away earlier this year. I didn't hear anything about that. So I think it was March or April she passed away. So that was a little bit of a shock. But anyway, a good memorial to Mr. Greenwald and very well deserved.
Anyone else? All right, staff?
Yes, so staff has recently approved a site plan for a 1.32 acre parking lot for the Ryder truck facility, and that is in the Schertz Industrial Park, Lot 15, Block 2, sorry. That's it.
All right. Item 7 is information available in the Planning and Zoning Commission packets, the status of those issues that we've sent forward to city staff, city council. And item 8, it is now 7 o'clock PM. There being no further business, this meeting's adjourned. Did you ever read the